Good morning, good afternoon. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you again. Welcome back to our further exploration into excellence in leadership. Hello, Jessica. Nice to see you there. You have a very nice sweater on today. Looking nice and cool for down in Naples. I guess you guys have been having some severe weather down there, huh? Got it. Well, listen, nice to see everybody again. I've been reflecting a little bit over the last couple of days on the UConn men's basketball team. I live in Connecticut. I've been watching the team throughout the year and thinking about culture and the role that culture has played on that particular team, because this is our last session of these four to think about culture on our teams. We'll come back to the topic later from kind of a different angle. We've been focusing mainly on values and beliefs here. We'll come back to it at a later time. But when you look at a team like UConn, they had this tradition of winning. They had won the championship 4 times in 20 years, which is pretty remarkable, actually. It's as good as any other team in the country, maybe better. But they really dropped down after 2014. They won it all in 2014, 2015, they were terrible. And 2016, they brought in a new coach. And that coach had been a kind of an up-and-coming coach, and he started rebuilding the program. And he said from the very beginning, we're going to compete for a national championship again. That's what we're here to do. And over the 2016 season, 2017 season to today, obviously they've built back up enough to become national champion again. And so how does that happen? When you think about, there's many different reasons. Maybe they have better players than they had a couple of years ago, or maybe the coach is just a better coach, who knows? But if you've watched them over the last couple of years like I have, or you've watched them over the course of this season like I have, you realize some elements about this team, and you probably notice certain things about any team that you follow in sports. For this particular team, there's an absolute belief in the value of hard work. There's just something about these folks, and that the coach has said it all year long. And when you hear the players talk all year long, they're always saying, we're in the gym, we're putting in the work, we're going to, put in everything we have to this, and it's going to pay off. And so that's an element of their culture. Second thing is, this team won a lot in the beginning of the season. They won 14 games in a row, and they were rated one of the best teams at that time. Then they lost 6 out of 7. And so that was a real kind of a wake-up call for them, that maybe we're not as good as we think we are. But listening to them during that time, they had a confidence that they were still on the right track. And so again, there was a cultural element there where they didn't give up, they didn't fall apart. And somehow they righted the ship, and they won most of the games towards the latter part of the season. And so it's simply an illustration of the importance of culture, which is, let's call it this, the collective mindset of everybody on the team. It's what you think about every single day and how you frame yourself and the situation around you in your mind. Einstein said, one of his most famous quotes is, the most important decision you have to make in life is whether you live in a friendly universe or a hostile one. And it's an interesting statement, right? What he's saying is, how you perceive the world around you is the most important decision you have to make in life. And so wherever you come down on that particular question is an element of your particular mindset, or in a sense, your culture as an individual person. And so when you start leading other people, of course, you're leading from the inside out. You're leading from what you believe is possible, what you believe is desirable, the way you think it's right to approach business, something like that. You carry that with you, and it extends out of you into everybody else who works with you and for you. And so the question is, are you doing that intentionally, or are you just leading by flying by the seat of your pants? What we've been focusing here on in the last couple of sessions is to bring some clear intention to how it is you want to lead your team, because you believe that's the best way to lead the team. It's not just a matter of saying, let's go out and get as many clients as we can, or let's give them good service. Those are certainly good things, but obviously there's more to it than that, because anybody can go out there and do that, but not everybody is as successful leading a team as everybody else. You could say the same thing for college basketball, right? All the coaches want to develop a good team. They want to have good players and give them good skills. But somehow there's this other element that's at play all the way through too. So today's the last time we're going to kind of talk about this a little bit. Before I did that, I wanted to ask, who has a kind of an experience of culture on their team since we last talked? Something that you discussed with your team and became clearer to you, or something you observed in someone else that maybe was representative of the team you want to be, or the team culture you want to have, or maybe something where they missed an opportunity to do that. where you wanted it to go this way, but it went another way. Let's hear a story or two before we open up the slides. Jessica, please take yourself off mute. Let's hear from you.
Thank you. Just very briefly, my business partner is my husband.
Right.
And it turns out that I had never actually communicated values and what actions support those values. And it turns out that we were on completely different pages. So thank you for now, the clarity.
Yeah, good. I'm glad that you did that. This is something that I recommend to everyone. If you have a partner in your business or a close worker in your business, if you haven't talked about values already, and I hope you have, but if you haven't, sit down and just ask a simple question. Say, could we talk tomorrow about some values? And in the meantime, would you please list the 4 or 5 values that you think are most important for the success of our team over the long term? And see what the person brings to the table tomorrow. Chances are you'll find some differences. What were the differences that you discovered in doing that, Jessica?
Those that I've chosen it was really hard to come up with the 8 to 10. I had more like, 20, and then to try to get them down to, 3 or 4. It was pretty tough, but actually so many of them fit under excellence. But, Ken's were more, service and customer service oriented, which makes perfect sense. Those that I came up with are more overarching, like abundance and excellence.
Yep, got it. Thank you. So for anyone who wasn't here last week, she was referring to a list that I shared with everybody at the last session or the session before that, a list of about 75 values. It's right on the platform there. You can download it anytime and use that as a starting point to have a discussion if you're not sure where to start. I'll say what I said last time about that, which is that's not necessarily intended to be the complete list or the perfect list of values. It's just as many as I could fit onto one page. But you can look at that particular page and say, which ones do I believe are really important to the success of our team? Which one do I believe are the most important to the success of our team? And the goal is to come out anywhere between 1 and 4. Some businesses have been built very successfully on one value. For example, Walmart, we talked about that last time. Or FedEx, for example, is another example. People just think of one thing when they think of FedEx, fast. But if you have 2, 3, or maybe maximum 4, what you're doing is you're putting a stake in the ground to say, this is how we believe we can win. You're saying not that the other things aren't important, they are important. And for many people, this work is hard because there's so many values that you identify that are important to some degree, absolutely. But part of the work is to really get clear about what those 4 are. You can say, for example, Apple. Apple does a lot of things. One thing that they've never abandoned since the day they opened was this focus on aesthetic beauty. Right? It's not just functionality that Apple was originally kind of became famous for and still is today, but it's this beauty in the products, right? Everybody knows that when they buy an Apple product, it's going to be really cool looking. It's going to feel cool. It's not just a functional plastic box, which would be cheaper and maybe, certainly more economical, but they choose to not do that because this piece is so central to them, this aesthetic beauty piece. And so when you think about your business, you say, what is it that matters most to us? Because as I said last time, this goes directly to your brand. Where does your brand come from? It actually comes from your values and your beliefs. When you're saying people who work with us will have an experience of X, maybe it's excellence, maybe it's service, maybe it's flexibility, maybe it's fun and quirkiness, maybe it's knowledge and expertise, right? Could be any of those things, could be a combination of those things. But you have to get clear about what those things are. It's not enough to just say, we're a business of integrity and we take good care of our customers, blah, 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 right? You need to really start to think about what those things are and why they matter to you in your business. And you should be able to talk about it. If anybody ever says, hey, I saw on your website and I saw that excellence is up there, what do you mean by that? You should have a response. You should have a response. Thank you for sharing that, Jessica. As you continue to do this work, thinking about values, it should be that the cultural exploration or the cultural dialogue that you have in your own mind and the other people that you work with should become a constant thing. Not every minute of every day, but a theme that goes through your business just as much as profitability or service, consistently high service, something like that. Developing the culture, maintaining the culture, and further evolving the culture towards a greater promotion of the success of the business is always your work. You can't outsource it to somebody else. You can't outsource it to a consultant or something like that. It's for you to hold on to. And if you don't hold on to it, then you get nothing. That's flying by the seat of your pants. Chirag always says, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. And that's what it really is about culture. If you don't know what your business is, then you're just a business. And you're just in a sense, an anonymous business among millions of others. If you want to stand out and create a distinctive brand, it has to be true to who you are. And as the leader and the owner of the team, you get to decide what that is. Doesn't mean that nobody else has any input. They should. It should be an ongoing dialogue. Let me pull up a couple of slides, and then we'll talk a little bit more after that as well. Okay. Creating a culture of success. Final one. We're going to move on to some other topics next week. What is culture? I've been saying it for the last couple of weeks. I really want you to remember what this is: a predictable pattern of thought and action, a mindset and an action set, if you will, that's shared by a group of people. What are the actions that I can expect and count on your people to be doing regularly and consistently in your business? What is the mindset, the approach to success in business? Is there any consistency or alignment among your team about what that is? If you have the same experience that Jessica just talked about, then no, you're not on the same page. Yes, you're emphasizing different things and they're both important, but the point is you're emphasizing different things. You have to start with the core of what are we at our very core? And then we can branch out from there and we can add other elements, but you can't start with two different cores. And if you have 3 or 4 people on your team, you can't start with 3 or 4 different cores, right? Essentially what a culture is that which unites a group of different people. People will always be different, but how do you create a team that's one unit? Part of it is to be clear about this stuff. How do we do things around here? And here's the key question to ask yourself if you're coaching yourself here, and that is my culture intentional? Or has it just developed by accident? If it's developed by accident because I've never thought about it before, then it's just evolved naturally. And that's what I call leading by flying by the seat of your pants. If you had a certain experience in your business, your culture might develop this way. If you had a different experience, let's say you're in a really good time and you sold a lot, your culture may develop differently compared to, let's say, a really tough time and difficult time. We all know these cycles are in the business, but that doesn't mean that your culture changes every time because of the business, right? If the nature of the business or the nature of the marketplace right now is this, it doesn't mean your culture morphs into that, because then you've lost yourself. You've lost what it is that you kind of believe at the core, right? We're talking about values, talking about beliefs. We talked last time about embedding values and beliefs. By the way, let me pull this down for just a minute. In your exploration or conversation with anyone else about values on your team, did anyone have a conversation about beliefs? I mentioned last time that a belief is a nugget of truth. It's a perspective that we have about the world around us that is true for us. And obviously we all have different beliefs, and these beliefs extend to what we think is possible for our business, what kind of people are right for our business, what kind of customers are right for our business. And I said, are there any kind of phrases that you might have that are kind of really like repeated by you as a mantra over and over again, such as everybody can win if they try hard enough? Or unfortunately, I had a lady who lived next door to me many years, great lady, wonderful old lady, and she had a belief, she had a mantra, which was, you can't win. She always would, talk about something like she got to the supermarket and they were sold out, or she got on the train, but there were no seats left, or, she went out for a walk and it started to rain. She would always end up by saying, you can't win. And that was a belief for her. But beliefs in the business setting are beliefs that should be intended to support the success of the business, like Compass's CEPs, core to who Compass is. Learn from reality. Be purpose-driven. All of those are important elements. Collaborate without ego. What Robert Refkin and the rest of leadership is saying to every Compass person out there is, this is how we believe you can succeed in business. We believe it's good for business when we collaborate without ego. We believe it's good for business when we learn from reality, et cetera. And so I'm just curious, did anybody identify a belief that's true for you that's kind of central to how you go about your business? If so, take yourself off mute and we'll hear from you.
May I?
Go ahead, Jessica. Sure.
So thank you. Something that's really important to me is positivity. And I keep going back and forth as to whether that's a value or a belief.
Okay.
But it's, it's not positivity in that it's, like a bubble or you're, glossing over, but it's
Mhm.
belief that there's always a solution or that something's happening for the right reason. Even if you're, framing, you're calling somebody, hi, is it a good time? Or hi, is it a bad time?
Yep.
Choosing the positive word, all of that. So, is it,
Okay. So if the word and the concept of positivity is a value, what we said last time was, remember, a value is one word, it's a concept, whereas a belief is typically a phrase or a sentence. And very often values are related to beliefs. A belief comes out of, let's say, a certain value that we have. So for example, if you're going to say positivity, you're talking about a value and you want to define what that is. And you want to talk with your team about how we can live that in the normal course of business. But if you say there's always a silver lining in a dark cloud, that's a belief. Right. And so that's a phrase. It's about a point of view and a perspective. A belief shares a point of view. Go ahead, Jessica.
Sorry to be such a hog on
Oh,
this,
go
but
ahead.
I will just share quickly a phrase, a belief from Emily Bossert when she was doing a meditation. It was focused on I can, you can, we can.
Got it. Yep. So perfect set of beliefs there. And you could have exactly the same thing with your clients. Right? You can say, I can use my knowledge and expertise and experience to serve you in the way that you need to be served. You can find exactly the house that's going to work for you, or you can choose exactly what kind of things you want to see from me and how you want this process to go. And we can absolutely succeed together. Something like that, right? I'm not saying to make something up. I'm saying be aware of something that may already be there inside of you. Because many of us have beliefs. We all have beliefs about many different things. If I were to ask you, what do you believe about cats and kittens? You might say, oh, they're so cute, they're adorable. Or you might say they're stinky. Or you might say, they're independent, right? Or you might say they're better than dogs. You might say they're worse than dogs. We have beliefs about everything. What I was suggesting last time was, while you're discussing values and thinking about how you approach business and what do you think makes a good business approach to success, you may uncover a belief along the way. So if you haven't, it's perfectly fine. You're not missing anything. It's not wrong. It's not a deficit. But just be aware that there may be a belief in there for you, like collaborating without ego is a really good thing, or learning from reality is a really good thing. Okay, let me pull that slide deck back up again. Okay. So embedding values and beliefs. We talked last time about three things. We talked about clarification, demonstration, and conversation. Clarification is the first piece. That's the process of identifying what the values and or beliefs are for your particular organization. And you can do that with starting with a list and pare it down to a couple, or you can just have a dialogue with people. But you have to end up with a clarity that these are the ones that we want to build our business around, that we want to run through the business all the time. Secondly, demonstration. You have to be able to act on the value. It's not just a nice word that's going to go on the wall in some picture frame or in some, book in some book that you create after some retreat that you do with your team. It has to be something that is demonstratable consistently through the normal course of business. If it isn't, throw it out and choose another value. Because if it's not demonstratable, then the client, the rest of the world, doesn't get the benefit of what that is, right? It's just in your head. Right? That comes to life through the actions and behaviors that you display and other people display on your team. So how does a client, for Jessica, for example, experience positivity? Well, maybe it's when the agent says, I'm so sorry we lost out on that house, but don't worry, others are coming on every day and we'll find another one that's even better than that one, right? That might be one way that a person expresses positivity. As opposed to some other agent who may not feel so strongly about positivity, they might say, well, it's a tough market right now. Everybody's kind of losing out. Eventually we'll probably win something, right? It might create a different experience for the client. So demonstration is about you first being a walking, talking expression of what those values are so that other people can see your commitment to it and they can see what it looks like. And finally, conversation. This is an ongoing dialogue forever until the end of time about what these values are, how to express them, why they matter to the business, how they deliver value to clients. Can you imagine the armed forces of America not continuing to talk about, let's say, duty or leadership or sacrifice. Almost impossible for us to think about them, giving them something about that in basic training and then never talking about it again for 40 years. And as parents, do we say to our kids when they're 4 years old, be polite, be honest, be respectful, and then we forget about it for the rest of their life? No, we keep hitting them over the head with it as many times as we can until we think they finally get it. Right? And so we need to have an ongoing dialogue or exploration about what these things are, because if you don't, other people are not going to care about them and you're back to flying by the seat of your pants again. So how do we do that? Well, you need to ensure that the conversation about these things is going to continue outside of the specific times that you set up to talk about it or the specific times you share it with everyone. And so I'll give you a couple of examples of what that could look like. But you need to make sure that when you're not in the room talking about it, that other people are still thinking about it. Right? It's been said that that leadership is about infecting people with a certain way of thinking and then having them continue that thinking when you're no longer there, in a sense. And so you need to create some kind of a mechanism or mechanisms for this to happen. So here's what it could look like. Here's what you could do here. If you've done all the rest of the work in identifying what the values are and you're on your way to demonstrating them on a regular basis, here's what you could do. One, develop a couple of different practices on the team that become part of your daily practice or your daily cultural activity that could include a meeting once in a while about the values. Maybe it's once a month. You choose value number 1 during January, you choose value number 2 during February, choose value number 3 during March. And you say, okay, let's remember, what did we mean by this value? Does anybody remember? What was our definition? We came up with a definition at the beginning of the year. Who remembers? I'm not really sure. Okay, let me read it to you again. What does that say to you? What does that say to you? What do we think this means? Right? And then you could say something like, well, who has an example of where you acted on this value in the last week or two with a client or with each other? Could be a conversation like that. Or you could add a 5-minute conversation about values during a regular meeting that you have about something else. Some teams do that. You should consider the value of having one-on-one conversations with people as well as a group discussion. So you may want to do both. When you meet with your folks once in a while on whatever their productivity, or maybe you have some kind of a standing meeting with your individual folks on the team, absolutely, that's a good time to just kind of check in on values. How are you living the values? Oh, I forgot. Great, let's talk about how you can live them for a little while. Or next time you're with a group, maybe you have a regular meeting or you have some kind of a retreat you do once a year or something like that. There's lots of ways you can do that. Or you could put the values right on the wall of your office, or you could put the values right on the meeting agenda. So whenever you have meetings, everybody says, our values are this, this, and this. Everybody sees it there, right? These are simple mechanisms to reinforce these concepts that you believe are central to the success of the business. Remember, a team is defined as a group of people with a common goal and a shared approach to business success. And at the foundation of that shared approach, which is policies and procedures and processes and all that, is values. And so make sure you announce this. Number 2, make sure you announce to the team, this is what to expect. Hey guys, we're going to have these meetings once in a while. Or, let's put four quarterly meetings on our calendar this year just to talk about values and belief stuff. Spend about an hour every quarter. It's not a big deal. Small commitment, but important in the long run. And third, schedule it into everybody's calendar. It's really important that you take the final step, that you put this time into your calendar. And that's why I suggest when I started these calls a couple of months ago, that each of you schedule 30 minutes in your calendar somewhere each week to add on to the 30 minutes here. That gives you 1 hour to think of leadership per week. That's 1 hour out of, let's say, 50 hours a week. That's 1 hour out of 50 hours a week, which is approximately 2% of your time. If you can't plan 2% of your time to be a good freaking leader for your team, you should retire, honestly. So that's why I suggest I thank you every week for being here for 30 minutes. And the homework assignments that I suggest can easily be done within 30 minutes. And so I suggest that you think about that going forward as a simple commitment that you make to yourself to the success of the business, to think through this stuff so that you're not flying by the seat of your pants. Because ultimately, it's up to you to keep people focused on what matters, just like as a parent or just like as a head coach. You have to do this work because no one else will do it. No one else is thinking about what makes this team the best it can be. Nobody else is thinking, how do we need to evolve a year or two from today? They're just looking at what's right in front of them, whether they work for you as an employee or whether they work as an agent out in the field. They're not thinking about it the same way you are. But everybody is tied together by what? Right? If a team is a group of people that share a common goal and have a shared approach to business success, if I ask every one of those people, what is our shared approach to business success? Are they going to give me the same answer? If they're a real team, they're yeah. Like if you ask those UConn guys who just won the championship, every one of them will say the first thing that they say is defense. The first thing they all say, I've heard them all year long. They say, we got to go be good at defense. We got to be good at defense. It's a big thing for them. Rebounding is a big deal. So they all know it. They have a common approach to business success. Their success revolves around their ability to play defense and rebound the ball. Of course, other things too. So for you, Jessica, and your husband, for example, you guys get to start right there. You guys have to have this right between the two of you. And then as you bring other people into your universe, even people who may not work for you, like if you're recommending people to escrow folks or to lawyers or anybody else, those people ought to have some kind of a common perspective on these values that you value as well, right? You wouldn't want to send your client to somebody who doesn't care about what it is you care about. And there's nothing wrong with being honest about that with the people that you work with as vendors. So let me ask you this. What's your next step? We've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. Some of you have taken some steps already, others haven't. I'm curious, Ryan, what's a step that you're thinking of taking now regarding the culture of the team? Ryan, you still there?
Oh, there we go, David.
Okay. What comes up for you in all this and the next step that you think you need to take?
I have to, in the current partnership I have, it's back to the basics of identifying those 3 to 5 values that are the core, as we would say, compass or Chirag Shah, the core 4, and defining those values and then not wavering from those, and then building from there instead of trying to do everything backwards.
Yep, got it. Correct. You will always lead first from who you are. That means you're leading from the inside to the outside. And the mistake that most of us make in business is we're leading from the outside. We're just reacting to the marketplace. We're reacting to what clients are saying. Nothing wrong with reacting to what clients are saying. But we want to bring more intention and proactivity to it so that we're not leading by flying by the seat of our pants. And so doing that absolutely is a way for you to put a stake in the ground to yourself and everybody else, Ryan, that this is what we care about here. This is what we believe matters most for our success and the success of our clients and the whole universe, if you like. So identify the values, define the values like a dictionary, 1-sentence statement about each value, and then identify actions or behaviors that everyone on the team can take in the normal course of business that reflect that value, each of those values. So the question would be, how could Susan on my team, who happens to be my assistant, honor responsiveness? Well, when she gets a call from an agent needs XYZ, we need to execute that within 2 hours, for example, right? So you need to be able to identify how you translate the concept into action, because the people generally can't do it themselves. You'll say, okay, go out and be a great walking, talking example of positivity or a walking, talking example of responsiveness or integrity or whatever it is. But I guarantee you, if you ask them, well, how do you do that? They'll have no idea. And so you need to really talk through with them a little bit how they see themselves doing that. The DMV here in the New York and Northeast area gets a bad rap. When you go into the DMV, it's slow. The people are not polite. They don't care if you don't have the right forms. They never give you a break. They tell you to come back another day, and you don't want to take another half day off to come back and wait online again and all that, right? There's a certain culture, and I don't know if it's completely true or not, but let's just assume for this conversation that it is. There's a cultural element in there that the people experience, which is non-responsiveness, non-caring, non-humanity, something like that, right? And I don't know how it got there. I don't know how it stays there, but it is an element that many people experience. And it may be that whatever it is that they're preaching at the DMV to be customer-oriented, to be service-oriented and responsive and all that, for some reason, it's not translating into actions that the other people experience. And so it's a big step to go from concept to the action. But as I said before, if you can't translate the value into actions that people experience the value through, then that value is not valuable to you. It has no benefit to the business. The benefit to the business is when the person experiences what it is that you want them to experience. So good for you, Ryan. Stick with it. If you have any questions, shoot me an email sometime. Happy to help you talk through any of that stuff. Okay, everybody, we're at 1 o'clock. Good luck with all of this. If you have any questions at any time about any of this, email me, david@chiragshahcoaching.com. I'm happy to help you over any hump that you have.
Thank you so much.
Everybody.
Really excited to get this all written out and communicated.
Great. Send it to me when you're done. I would love to see what you come up with.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Have a great week, everybody. Yep. Bye-bye now. See you next week.
Thanks, David.
Yep. You're welcome. Bye-bye now.